All right, well, thanks everybody for coming. This is the first annual, I guess, DPW Spring Informational Meeting. It's just an attempt for Kevin and I to talk about things that are going on in the village. My name is Matt Mortwood. I'm the Director of Public Works. I'm going to go through part of the presentation, and then Kevin will do a part, and I'll kind of wrap it up at the end. I'll let him introduce himself when he's up here, but he's the village engineer. And, you know, I think an important part of the work that we do is talking about it with folks that are interested, and I'm happy to talk about it with you gentlemen tonight. Thank you to Trustee Warren for being in attendance as well. So this is a real quick look at the agenda for this evening. Wanted to have just a quick explanation of right-of-way. I think some folks in this room are very well versed in that, but it's possible that others in the room or watching online may not be, but it's an important thing to understand when it comes to the work that we do in public works. We're going to talk about the annual road program, the annual seal coat program. There's some road projects, Donjas Bay Road, the Maple and Lannon intersection that are both happening this summer. We're doing a study on Division Road for what that might look down the road. We've got some water main relays happening in Glenwood Park, stormwater management topics, and then just kind of a rundown of the different DPW operational things that are going to be happening in the village over the course of the next, 6, 7, 8 months. The summer kind of spring, fall season. So any questions before we dive into this? Okay. And I apologize if this discussion about the right-of-way is really repetitive for people that have been here before, but I'm going to talk to people that are listening to the recording as well. We wanted to talk about the right-of-way just because it's something that's not understood by everybody, like I mentioned earlier. And this graphic is a little depiction of what the right-of-way is. It's a strip of property that's owned by the village off of the street. And I'd like to point at it, but I can't. But you can kind of see, given different configurations of yard, if there's a sidewalk right up to the curb, or if there is no curb or just a curb or curb and sidewalk, how that line lands on your yard. And it kind of does appear to go into your yard. And that's an area, like I said, that the village owns and maintains and also works within. A lot of times, things like water, sewer, stormwater, drainage, and even trees are in that right of way. So I think it's important that, folks understand where that is. You can actually go on the GIS and take a look at where that line is on your property. And I think it would be a good thing for you folks and other folks listening to do, just so they know where that line is, because it's not something you think about every day. But then, lo and behold, there's something where it comes up, and it's good to know you've got a place to reference that. Any questions about right-of-way? Okay. So I'm going to just jump into the first topic here, and that is the annual road program. You can see on this image a layout of what the annual road program looks like for the next 5 years. The yellowish color is what we're planning to do in 2024, red in 25, and so on. This image and a description of the road program is also available on the Germantown website, so you can look at that and get some greater detail as well. This program is adjusted like year by year. So as conditions or traffic volumes change on roads, it's possible that something, that we have planned right now for 2025 could get pushed out because it's actually performing better than we expected, or vice versa. Something could get pulled forward because the condition deteriorates more than we'd expected. But what we do know is 2024. This is a list of the roads that are depicted here graphically. There's a list of the roads themselves in different parts of the village. The two that have the asterisks on them, Squire Drive and Maple Drive, those are roads that we have applications in for grant funding. Squire Drive, we're fairly confident that we'll be able to proceed with that. It's an LRIP grant that's more or less a formality for the village to get the amount we need to do Squire Drive. The Maple Drive application is a lot more competitive. So if we don't get that, it's something that we'll have to look at for future years. Anybody here live near one of those roads? Have any concerns about the program coming through? One thing that's been a topic lately, and I wanted to make sure people understood going into the program, is how that impacts your driveway approach. And that driveway approach is in the right of way, and then subject to the village removing and replacing to match into the new road profile. So typically when we come through and do a road and we need to match in to an existing driveway, we'll do that work within the right of way, and we'll cut out and replace whatever is there with asphalt. That does come into play and is a cause for concern sometimes when residents have extended concrete into the right of way. But the village traditionally, and this is how it's been specified for years in our road program, will replace those with asphalt. And if you have any questions about that, at the end of the presentation, we've got contact information. Feel free to reach out to us, myself or Kevin, to talk about that. And if you're in the room, we have our cards sitting over there. Yeah.
On how the roads get.
Yeah, the question was, how do roads get into the program? So it's a combination of a couple things. One is it's called a PASER rating, which is just a scale where roads are rated 1 through 10. And as roads deteriorate, we kind of look at them for different treatments. Some of it could be seal coating, which we're going to talk about next, if their condition is just starting to come down. But then when they're really kind of nearing the end of their useful life and the condition kind of lines up with that, that's one big consideration for how roads are identified to go into the program. The other is that combined with traffic volume. So if you have a PASER rating of a 3 on a road and it's a subdivision residential road versus maybe a street like Division Road or something like that, Division Road would probably get the priority just because of the traffic volume. So that's generally the approach. And same way I was talking about earlier, roads can kind of get pulled further up or they can get pushed further out. We do a PASER rating every 2 years. So we got that data last year. We work off of that data for 2 years and then do the analysis again and recalibrate the program. Just wanted to mention that access will be maintained. We're just in the final steps of getting the contract documents in place for the 2024 road program. Once that happens, we'll send out communication via mail to all the affected residents that talks about the kinds of things that we're talking about tonight. So jump ahead to the seal coat program. This is just a depiction of the roads that we're doing seal coat on this year. Unlike the road program, we haven't historically had a 5-year seal coat program. It's just a little more of a year-by-year effort. And you'll notice the different colors in the program. First, here's, some of the affected roads that we're looking at for this year. But the colors correlate to different treatments. And there's really 3 different approaches that we take to the seal coat program. The first is a product called GSB 88, and that's a product that's not really like a top layer intended to like make the road look nice and pretty and black, although it does initially. But it's a product, oils essentially that are meant to kind of, soak into the road and create some more life and make it more usable for the future. So it does look kind of like, nice and pretty and black again for a period of time, but it does kind of fade as that soaks in. That's not an indication that the product doesn't work. That's just how it works. So there's, I think, maybe a little bit of a misconception about that I want folks to be aware of. The microsurface is more of a surface product, and it has some granular material in it as well. So that's applied in certain situations. Generally, the GSB 88 is going to be used on roads that are slightly newer and slightly higher PASER rating, and then microsurface slightly older and generally a little lower PASER rating. And then the chip seal is kind of like microsurface in that it's just oil and granular material, but it's a coarser material and it's applied in a much thicker layer. And we're typically only using that in more like rural areas because it does create a lot of dust. It can be a little bit messy, but it is a good use of the technology on those roads. So just like with the road program, once this contract is finalized, we'll be communicating with residents about the kind of stuff we talked about tonight, talk about how access is going to work. They're quick curing products. So, in terms of getting access to your driveway, it's usually just a matter of 4 to 6 hours or something. So if you know about it a couple days ahead of time, you can usually kind of coordinate how you're moving in and out of your driveway. Any questions about seal coat? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin here to talk about Donjas Bay Road and a few other topics.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening. I'm Kevin Driscoll, village engineer. And as Matt said, I'm here to talk about a couple other topics, starting with Donjas Bay Road reconstruction. The project limits for the reconstruction are from Fond du Lac to Wasaki. So that's a little bit under a mile. The timeline for this work is to begin this spring and work to be continue through the summer with the anticipated completion this fall. These slides will be posted online after, and we'll be happy to send any links to the slides if you'd like. The contractor is going to be Vinton. They were awarded the contract, and construction inspection is going to be done by Grafe Consultants. The scope of this work is pavement replacement west of the railroad to Fond du Lac. That's going to be a 2-inch mill and overlay. That's about 3,000 feet. Then there'll be a box culvert replacement east of the railroad. So that road will be closed due to that box culvert replacement. And then there's going to be a full reconstruction of that road for about 2,200 feet. There's going to be 2 courses of hot mix asphalt, and it's going to total up 6 inches. It'll also include curb and gutter and 5-foot sidewalk. And we'll have this posted on we already have it posted on the website that this project is happening as well. Another project right down the road here at Maple and intersection with Lannon is the State Highway 167 improvement. And this is a DOT project. So there's federal, state, and local contributions to the project. And this project will also be happening this summer. Contractor is also Vinton on this project. And the scope or the improvements that are included in this project include adding, let me see here. Sorry about that. Is there a pointer on this one? The middle one? So it's adding, not showing up, it's probably reflected. Show up on the screen. Sorry about that. So there's the eastbound right turn southbound onto Maple. There'll be a right turn lane added. And then the southbound on Maple to the westbound 167 will have improvements as well. So that's the scope of the major intersection improvements, along with traffic signal upgrades and median island replacements. There'll be some ditching and grading as well. And again, this is a DOT project. And if residents do have questions, they're welcome to call Village Hall. However, we'll be forwarding contact information and following up with the DOT, as it's a DOT jurisdiction and DOT run project. Another project that we're working on is the Division Road study and public engagement. This is for planning improvements along Division Road from Mequon Road to County Line Road. This project began in spring, and public information meetings are being planned for this summer. And we'll have additional outreach with letters to businesses and property owners along the corridor, as well as the public information meeting posting on the website, and potentially in the agendas and meetings component of the village webpage. This project is doing a traffic study. So right now there's traffic cameras out there to count the average daily traffic volumes. The intent is to be able to identify traffic patterns and understand if we need to do improvements to the turning movements or intersection improvements for pedestrians as well as motorists in that corridor. Another component of the work is to plan for some consistency where there's some areas that have a rural cross section, more with a ditch, compared to an urban cross section where there's a curb and gutter and side path. So there's some segments that have been identified for making it a little more consistent and connecting that curb and gutter and doing some side path improvements and drainage improvements as well. So we'll have some community meetings and share some concepts, and then bring those for recommendation to the Public Works Highway Committee and ultimately to the village board for potential funding and road design in 2025. We also have work in the design phase currently for Glenwood subdivision. The limits of that work include Concord Drive off of Pilgrim Road, and it extends to Butternut on the west, School Road and Shakebark Road, as well as Glenwood Road. Again, that's off of Pilgrim and Concord in that Glenwood subdivision. And the purpose of this project is to It's for betterment of service and to loop for redundancy, part of the water system, and to upsize some 6-inch water main to a traditional 8-inch diameter water main for fire flow pressure and reliability of service. The timeline for this project is where it's currently under design, and it's an accelerated schedule where we're trying to get it advertised for bid yet this summer, for construction this fall. Overall, it's approximately 1,500 feet of 6-inch water main relay to 8-inch. And our asset management strategy for this is to complete the top course of asphalt following the water main relays. And finally, from my portion of the topics is probably everyone's favorite, stormwater management. So what the village responsibilities are for complying with the DNR Wisconsin Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit for the municipal separated storm sewer system, when that can turn into an acronym soup for the DNR, WIPDs, MS4, and the TMDLs and all this other stuff. The bigger picture is the goals of fishable, swimmable, drinkable water. And for the stormwater component, a lot of it deals with ponds and making sure that ponds are maintained appropriately so there's no critical failure where flooding could occur downstream, and then as well as maintaining water quality. So we have an effort for outreach letters to make sure that the property owners of locations where ponds are on these parcels are continuing to do their certification. And then the village is also doing pond inspections. So we look for maintenance agreements and as-built records to make sure that when we go to renew the permit with the DNR, that we're adhering to the requirements. The permit terms are coming due, so we have a renewal for a 5-year period coming up. And not to bore you with the details, but just to overview what the general requirements are of the permit. It includes sampling of stormwater outfalls to make sure that there aren't cross connections from like sanitary sewers or illicit discharge, like someone dumping chemicals down the storm drain. So part of that, to prevent that from happening, is education and outreach. So that's another component that we have of the permit. Doing erosion control inspections during construction. And then there's the post-construction requirements that I had mentioned before about the as-built records and the maintenance agreements and making sure that we have regular maintenance completed. And then there's the final component is pollution prevention. And that's street sweeping and management of leaves and debris, so that doesn't impact the water quality. And another aspect of stormwater management is when it's underground, we don't really think of it all the time, but we're looking at a stormwater management feasibility study for how to evaluate options for funding on ongoing operation and maintenance of the storm sewer system, in addition to any necessary repairs, and potentially programming future relays. So when sewers need to be replaced, that there's a funding mechanism available, in addition to any other necessary improvements to ponds. So there'll be more to follow up on that. So that is all I had on those topics, and I'll pass it back over to Matt, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kevin. So next, I just wanted to run down some of the operational things that Public Works is going to be doing over the next several months. So I'm just going to kind of run down this list pretty quick. And After that, we're kind of nearing the end of the presentation, so, we'll be happy to take questions at the end and just have a little bit of a talk. But first up, hydrant flushing. This is a DNR requirement. We're planning to begin the hydrant flushing on May 6th. It's up to a 6-week process for us to get through and flush every hydrant in the village. We've already begun some street sweeping operations, and those will continue. We do make a full pass through the village with street sweeping. Tree planting and pruning. I know we had a couple gentlemen here that were interested in this topic. Right now, what we're planning is potentially a planting effort in the fall and potentially a pruning effort in the fall. Those are budgeted items, but what we have to do first is come up with a comprehensive tree plan. At a recent Public Works and Highway Committee meeting, that was the direction given to staff by the committee, that there would be a pause on tree work until a plan was brought forward, a comprehensive plan that talks about those two particular topics. How do we manage the pruning in the right of way and planting? So we're expecting to bring that forward to the Public Works Committee likely in June. We've got kind of a quick turnaround for the May committee, but likely in June, with the hopes that we're able to utilize our budget for 2024 in the fall instead of when we would traditionally do, especially the planting work in the spring. And it's worth noting that that comprehensive plan will also include different provisions and some forms of community engagement that hadn't existed in the past, such as a tree committee or some other mechanism where staff are able to get feedback from residents about the programs that are anticipated to take place in their neighborhoods. So that's where we're at with tree planting. It's a slight pause right now. Plan approval, hopefully. We'll work through that this summer and then potentially resume in the fall. We are in summer hours for the yard waste facility. So summer hours are Tuesday and Thursday, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. and then Saturday from 8 to 3:30 p.m. Coming up in the fall, and I probably should have had a slide about this, I guess, but we're going to be moving into a new building this summer too. And the yard waste facility will move with it. So as that gets closer, we'll be sure to have communication out at the current facility, hand that out to customers that come through, and do our best to talk about it through village website, village social media, that kind of stuff. Bulky item collection. I have this on our list. Waste management is the one that actually performs the work, but they're our contractor. And we're expecting that pickup to begin the week of June 10th. And they basically continue with that effort until they've picked everything up. One note on the bulky pickup is that you need to call ahead and coordinate the pickup. So you can't just put something out at the end of your driveway and expect that they're going to pick it up. You're going to have to call Waste Management and tell them, I am setting this out here, and then they'll have it on their schedule to pick it up. And curbside brush collection. That's going to begin early in June, June 3rd. And that's a process that takes approximately 2 weeks to complete. I know we had a lot of damage to trees and that sort of thing with that January storm. So we're expecting that there's going to be a fair amount of brush. And we know that the yard waste facility has been busy with the same. So those are both options that are available to you. Real quick, just wanted to touch on 2 more things, and then we'll just kind of take some questions and wrap things up for the evening. But Public Works staff, Kevin and I in particular, are working on coordinating the Richfield utility extension. It's a project that's managed by Richfield, and Richfield has hired an engineering firm to do the design. We've been working cooperatively with them on that. Recently, we've decided to split the construction into 2 phases. So the construction begins at Freistadt and Goldendale, phase 1, and goes up to Holy Hill Road. And then phase 2 will be Holy Hill Road north to the ultimate point in Richfield. And it'll cross the freeway, kind of go along the freeway and cross right at about Rockfield Road. But for phase 1, we're progressing pretty well on the engineering plans. There's some land acquisition and that sort of thing that still needs to happen along the route. But we are anticipating that Cedar Corp, the firm that Richfield has hired, will put those plans out for bid in about September of this year, and anticipate that there will be construction starting in the fall and potentially over the winter. The impacts to citizens, for the most part, unless your property is on the path that we're going through, it shouldn't affect you too much, other than for just a little chunk of Freistadt Road right by the Goldendale intersection, because that's where everything is connecting. So you will see some impact to that intersection, and then a little bit west on Freistadt Road when we're doing that work, again, late fall, winter time period, if everything goes as planned. And then it's worth mentioning that the water utility has a lot of different work going on right now. I think it's our busiest division in public works right now, with all the capital improvements that are taking place. They weren't as big of a topic at the meeting tonight because they're generally not impacting the public. They're, power construction, well construction, booster station construction projects. But they are all happening, and they do take a lot of our time. The well 12 and tower 4 are up there again by Rockfield Road, Goldendale Booster. All 3 of those projects are really intended to serve the high pressure zone that exists kind of in that development area out there. And then the tower 3 rehab, I think this gentleman mentioned that and was looking for an update on when the painting would take place. Paul, our superintendent for water, is in the audience, and that's still on track for this summer, right, Paul? Yep. So that project was awarded and is moving forward for summer construction. In addition to the painting, there's some other mechanical work and upgrades in the tower as well. So that's kind of the end of our presentation, but we'd be happy to take any questions that you guys have. Yes, sir. Well, for the meantime, Public Works is going to continue to use the land. We'll still potentially, there's a large stockpile of brush and stuff and compost that's at the site. That's going to take quite a while to work through. So we'll continue to operate out of it for a while. Down the road, I suppose anything is on the table, but there's no immediate plans. Any other questions? Did I answer the tree questions? Okay.
Net one. Will they ever be putting stock on those?
I can't say it's something that's on our radar, but it's, something that could be considered down the road. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. There was work done in Concord Road and south of Concord Road that included underground utilities for the sanitary sewer and water system. And that included the main replacement and relays of those mains, as well as the sanitary building sewer laterals being replaced, along with water service laterals being replaced. So that was done in 2023. And there was a binder course of asphalt that was put down on Concord. And then north of Concord, there's going to be water main relay. So that's the plan, is to upsize the existing water main from 6-inch to 8-inch diameter. Or there's a betterment of service component where we want to loop it. It's kind of like a dead end, and when we loop it, it'll make the system more reliable. And then that 8-inch line will also help with the fire flow pressures. So then Concord, it's the binder course. So it's kind of like a lasagna or a sandwich. So there's, one layer and then a second layer kind of thing. So the binder's the bottom layer, and then the top coat will be completed once those connections are made into Concord at Butternut on the west and Glenwood on the east. And then those will go to the north. Yeah, Shagbark and School Road running east and west. Those will be relayed as well. Sure, you're welcome.
Anything else? If not, we would appreciate it if you signed in. Name and address would be great. If you just want to leave your name too, that's fine. But it's good documentation for us and helps us meet some of our stormwater requirements too. So this was considered education and outreach. But we don't have one scheduled. I do want to make at least this spring meeting an annual thing. And, we'll talk about, maybe doing another version of this in the fall, kind of leading into leaf collection and winter and that sort of stuff, and wrap up of what's happened in the summer. So yeah, we're doing our best to extend our communication out a little more, and it'll include a few of these meetings. Okay. Thanks much.